Three properties are fundamental in nature, and any hypothesis that hopes to describe nature should explain these three properties at the very core of the hypothesis. These three things are relativity, gravity, and the quantum nature of light. In this presentation, we describe those three in terms of a universe comprised only of electromagnetic phenomena. Theoretical physicist von Soldner predicted in 1801 that gravity would deflect a beam of light twice as much as gravity would deflect material objects. Einstein used this as a proof in his theory of general relativity. Sir Arthur Eddington actually measured the deflection a short time later. General relativity theory predicts that photons must not only respond to gravity, but must create gravity as well. This now is established mainstream fact. What is it that must happen when the gravity that photons create changes the momentum of objects in space? Momentum change requires energy. Energy must be conserved. Photons provide this energy. What change must the photon experience as a result? If photons create gravity and that gravity changes the momentum of objects in space, photons must give up energy. This must show up as a longer wavelength. The amount of redshift relates directly to the density of space in the photon's path. We should then find objects in space whose amount of redshift changes over time. The electric and magnetic charge fields of photons seem to radiate away from the central points of maximum amplitude. Photon interaction always happens very close to these central points. We know that the amplitude of the central points of photons is constant, because if they were not constant, they would necessarily be part of the equation for photon action. They are not there. These fields seem to radiate instantly outward forever and diminish in force as the square of distance, just like gravity. By radiate instantly outward, we mean that charged objects and gravity feel each other's force instantly without a speed of light time delay. Physicists noticed that moving charged particles react directly toward other moving charged particles. The sun attracts the Earth toward its current position and not toward its speed of light delay position 8 minutes ago. That leads to the question, what is gravity? We assert that a difference between fields of photons and fields of gravity cannot be determined. Electric and magnetic fields from photons exist throughout empty space just like gravity. Their force diminishes as the square of distance, just like gravity. Notable physicists as early as 1920 asserted that electromagnetic fields must produce gravity. Even though the diminished fields away from photon central points cannot directly interact with matter, they do exist instantly forever away from the peak amplitudes. They create gravity by their subtle effect upon the constants that determine the impedance of space. At first we thought points of constant amplitude in photons might saturate at an offset with the help of remnant electromagnetic fields in space. Then we saw the work of Dr. Albrecht Geis of Germany and realized that he had nailed it. He had nailed the true mechanism of gravity. That notion of how and why photons in space must gradually lose energy is a mathematical certainty given the laws of nature that we know about. According to nature's laws, any change of momentum of anything requires an exchange of energy. You can never get something for nothing. Energy is always conserved. For about 200 years now, physicists have realized that all of nature behaves exactly as if all of nature is comprised solely of electromagnetic phenomena. My first encounter was with the sentence, "The final irreducible constituent of all physical reality is the electromagnetic field." If all of nature always behaves as if a thing is so, maybe that thing is so. If not, what difference? We interact with nature based upon what we sense of nature. Everything we can sense tells us that all of nature is comprised solely of electromagnetic activity. So far, no evidence that it is not so has ever been found. But never mind that this is so. Every accepted and established theory abandons that fact. Such theories cannot possibly represent reality. Robert Kemp showed that Maxwell's equations could accommodate constant amplitudes for the E and B fields. He solved for those amplitudes. We now add to that understanding and assert that photons and only photons create gravity. Mass does not create gravity. Photons that comprise mass create gravity. This works whether you agree that photons comprise all of mass or that photons only comprise most of mass, as in quantum theory. Although Maxwell did not know about relativity phenomena or the quantum nature of the universe, his equations do accommodate both. The speed of propagation of electromagnetic fields is invariant relative to movement, and that forces relativity phenomena. Constant amplitudes of the E and B fields force the quantum nature of the universe. Gravity was described in terms of electromagnetic phenomena by Sir Arthur Eddington in a paper he published in 1920. Dr. Albert Geis later discovered this independently and presented at physics conferences and in peer-reviewed publications. Both physicists show with mathematical certainty that electromagnetic phenomena must produce gravity. It is a simple process of refraction where the path of light bends toward the direction where the speed of light is slower. That is gravity. The description of gravity provided by Dr. Geis solves a problem that has puzzled physicists since it was first discovered early in the 19th century. Why does the path of light bend twice as much as material objects that pass close to the sun? Dr. Geis provides the cause and the math to calculate the bending. This is a powerful indicator that his notion is correct. Although Eddington guessed the true source of gravity first, he did not show why material objects only respond to gravity half as much as a photon. Dr. Geis shows that electromagnetic fields in material objects move in a constant jumble of patterns. Some directions provide a minimum gravitational effect. Photons moving perpendicular across a gravity source move in the same direction all the time. That provides the best gravitational effect. Dr. Geis provides equations that verify and predict the effect. The speed of light is constant in empty space, but there is no place where space is completely empty. All of space teems with electromagnetic activity. Whether one suspects, as we assert, that electromagnetic activity comprises all of matter, or that electromagnetic activity comprises most of matter, as in the Standard Model, fields from this activity must pervade the empty space. These fields must provide gravity, as proven by other prominent physicists of the past and present, including Dr. Geis and Sir Arthur Eddington. Gravity impedes gravity. Before the time of Einstein, many physicists proposed that all of nature might be comprised of electromagnetic activity alone. Many realized at the turn of the 20th century that this notion explained all relativity phenomena. H. Ziegler explained this to Einstein as indicated in Einstein's paper. We should note that the arithmetic developed by Lorentz that describes relativity phenomena only works when electromagnetic activity comprises all of matter. It does not work when electromagnetic activity comprises only part of matter, as in the Standard Model. According to Lorentz, material objects and clocks change their physical shape when in motion. Physicists of the time called this idea ad hoc because they knew of no reason why this might be so. We now know that objects must change shape when in motion because they are comprised of a most elemental thing that must always move at the speed of light. This most elemental thing is light itself, so the notion is not ad hoc at all. The construct of matter forces the change. Time itself plods on from past to future at a constant rate and does not change due to motion. The experience of time by material objects does change when the objects move. This is because objects experience time as a count of repetitions of patterns in the objects. Each atom is like a tiny clock. The most elementary constituent of each pattern must move at a fixed speed. Repetition rate slows because elementary constituents must move through a greater distance to complete their pattern. In the Lorentz version of relativity, objects experience space and time differently due to their motion. In the Einstein version, space and time distort due to motion of objects. Both use the Lorentz transformation, so the results should be the same, but there is a subtle difference. Einstein introduced the notion of inertial frames of reference. Objects of a common inertial frame could ignore the transformations. This is not so in the Lorentz version. All of nature exists in the inertial frame of reference that is here and now. Other frames of reference are only mental abstractions. Since the distortion applied to the physical objects, it did actually occur, no matter the inertial frame of reference. We can then understand the cause of the material distortions of matter as explained by H. Ziegler. It then becomes clear that black holes cannot form and so cannot exist. Gravitational time dilation applies a negative feedback and so prevents the formation of black holes. Feedback systems are common in nature. Engineers use them throughout electric circuitry. Feedback happens when a portion of the output of a system is applied back or fed back to the input of the system. Positive feedback has the effect of increasing the output. Negative feedback has the effect of decreasing the output. It is clear, then, that gravity provides a negative feedback for gravity. The exact mechanism of the negative feedback can be explained by way of two constants that determine the speed of light. These are electric permittivity and magnetic permeability. This slows the speed of light. These are constant in empty space, but there is no place where space is empty. The presence of electromagnetic activity modifies the constants such that the presence of the activity increases the value. This slows the speed of light. The path of light bends toward the direction where the speed of light is slower. As Sir Arthur Eddington and later Dr. Albert Geist showed, gravity results. So we have one kind of gravity created by photon. Does there exist any other kind? If so, how many different kinds of gravity exist and why? We have known since the early 20th century that electromagnetic activity exists only in quantum chunks. No one explained why this was so. The reason is plain and certain. As we explained before, the peak amplitudes of the E and B fields reached by photons must be constant. This constant amplitude of the E and B fields of photons provides the quantum nature of the universe. There is no reason to suspect that this quantum nature applies to anything other than electromagnetic activity. We now add to that understanding and assert that photons and only photons create gravity. Mass does not create gravity. Photons that comprise mass create gravity. This works whether you agree that photons comprise all of mass or that photons only comprise most of mass, as in quantum theory. People knew at the turn of the 20th century that a photon-only universe explained all relativity phenomena. No one has ever found any evidence that this is not so. Yet most established theory cannot be real if the most elemental constituent of all physical reality really is the electromagnetic field. The notion that photons comprise all of matter does predict and explain the three most fundamental properties of physical reality. It explains all relativity phenomena, all gravitational phenomena, and the cause of the quantum nature of the universe. No other idea about the construct of nature does all that. Established theory does none of that. But no need to feel bad about that. Throughout history, established theory has always been wrong. At least nowadays we no longer burn people at the stake for pointing it out.